Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel for a new video. In this video, I want to dive into the two sides of awakening. And this is something I've actually been exploring the last few years. And it's been quite a deep realization for me how there's actually a personal awakening and then there's a spiritual awakening, right? And both are actually important. If we're solely focused on the spiritual awakening, we might access deep peace and realization and calmness and, just rekindling with our true nature, which is beautiful and important. But if we're solely focused on that, we might actually still be unhealed and hiding in our personal self at the same time. So we might actually use the spiritual awakening as a way to hide from, personal expression. Because that's maybe where we don't feel safe enough. That's maybe where we don't feel safe in this world as a person, right? And so sometimes the deepest spiritual realizations aren't complete if they're not balanced out with the actual embodiment of it, with it integrating into our personality and allowing us to live that, right? And so in this video, I want to dive into that a little bit deeper. There's two sides of awakening, the personal awakening side and the spiritual awakening side, and how they both matter deeply, and how a life of maturity and a life of alignment in you is cultivated when you give attention to both, right? And maybe focus on the one that you haven't nourished or nurtured enough in times, and then in other times maybe give the other side more attention, because that's what your intuition is calling you forth, right? So let's dive in. As always, if you could leave a like, leave a comment with your thoughts and feedback. I'd love to hear from you, and subscribe to this channel. I'd love that. I appreciate that. Gives this channel a lot of opportunity to grow and the momentum. So always appreciate it. But yeah, let's dive in. Let's talk first about the spiritual side of awakening. And this is something that I would say I'm an expert in, and that has awakened in me quite deeply over the last 5-6 years. And I remember still in 2017, I went to New Zealand with some friends, some dear brothers of mine. And we went on this trip, and the whole intention of this trip, this camping trip, was just, let's get all the way home to enlightenment. Let's awaken spiritually to the deepest level possible. And so we were meditating in our tent every day for 6-7 hours, and it was intense. But we were just so committed. We wanted the truth. We were yearning for truth. And that's something that I think that has always been a quality in me, and that I see in the most advanced spiritual seekers, is there's this thirst for truth and this seeking for the truth. And we want to embody the truth, right? And when some people are building their life, all they're wanting is success and something to show for and to build a big business, and that's great and all. But there are some people, and if you're watching this, you might be one of them, that really just have this deep yearning for truth, right? And to embody the truth and our truth in the deepest way possible. And so I've always had this thirst for truth, which led me to dive so deep into the awakening of presence, the awakening of beingness. What fascinated me about it so much is that it is the awakening of our true nature. There is a true nature that's within us, that is witnessing life through us, that is the consciousness that's actually behind, you could say behind, but it's not actually behind, but kind of within the person that we are, imitating, animating the person that we are. But you are actually that consciousness, you are that presence, you are that beingness. The greatest enlightened masters like Ramana Maharshi and Papaji, they've realized that to be their natural state. And the more you realize that to be your natural state, the more it's like this energy of presence is something that you transmit or radiate through your energy field. And so for me, I had my first experience with awakened presence, that realization that I am indeed the presence. When I was in New Zealand, I was sitting in this meditation hall. We were doing work for being able to stay somewhere. We had very little money at the time. And I was in that meditation hall and I was meditating, and suddenly it just kind of opened in me, something expanded in me. And I realized, whoa, like I feel like I'm the room now. I'm the whole kind of spaciousness that surrounds everything. I am that. And so my body felt like My person felt like something that was arising within me, something that was happening in me, but wasn't who I ultimately was. And so at that first awakening, I still remember that was quite a deep moment of realization, 2017. And, then I had that come in and go, but, I think I had that first experience and then it just kind of faded away. And I was seeking for that experience again, but it just didn't come back right. It's like, as a person, we can't always force that experience. It's like divine timing when it comes to you and when it doesn't. But throughout 2018, 2019, I kept having these moments of experience where I would zoom out and I would just become this spaciousness, right? And I would see, whoa, my body, my person is included in the spaciousness, but it's not ultimately who I am. I am this presence where everything originates from. That is the divine. The divine is that beingness, is that presence. That is ultimately who I am, and it's also who every other person that I've ever met is. It's within them, right? That's what unites us. And so more and more I had these openings, and I would just fade away, and these openings and fade away. Until at some point, I think it was 2020, something like that, I had a moment of experience where it clicked in such a deep way where I feel like it's never left me anymore. And I still deepen and kind of in and out in a sense of sometimes it's more felt deeply and sometimes it's more in the background. But there was this moment where it was this irreversible realization. I am that consciousness. I am that being. And in that I had to go through some ego deaths, some challenging moments of feeling like me as a person didn't matter. So I had this grief about my person, that me as Henry doesn't really matter if I'm just this consciousness, this presence, if we're all just that. Who am I really? Like, is this just a dream that doesn't have any value? And so that's how my ego interpreted it. And that's a natural phenomena when you start awakening into presence, because you start realizing yourself to be more than just a person. And so the person kind of moves in the background, becomes the space in which you express, becomes the vessel that allows the divine to shine through, right? But you realize that it's not about you, and that you're just a part of a bigger whole. And so that was very humbling, and I just feel like that's the awakening of presence. And here's why it is important. You can't, in my full understanding of it, you can't actually be fully embodied spiritually if you do not have that realization or if you do not have that awakening. Because being present, being deeply present is how we relate to life as consciousness, is how we relate to life as an organism of unity. And only when we're truly tapped in and present can we really feel into the field, feel into other people, recognize that they are one with our being, with our eternal nature, right? If we don't have that awakening, we'll always be perceiving the world as something separate. We'll be perceiving other people as something separate. And that doesn't actually allow you to tap into the deep love and the deep ocean of love that's within your heart. If you still come from that limited perspective that everyone's just separate and there's danger out in the world. And of course there's dangers in that sense, right? There's things that can happen to us. But the more grounded and embodied we are in awakened presence, the more safe we feel spiritually, the more held we feel, the more contained we feel by our true nature. So it's like the person that I am is held by a bigger organism of my presence, and that ultimately has my back, that ultimately supports me, that ultimately ensures that my highest destiny cannot be missed, that I am going the path that I need to go, right? And so there's a deep trust and inner safety that you start feeling, and you become more embodied just in faith in the divine, because you've seen and known yourself to be that at the core of everything. And so awakening to our presence is important, because what happens is that the more you awaken to it, you kind of become this presence and you embody it in your life. And how that is important is that you there's way more spaciousness within you, right? To interact with life, there's more spaciousness. You don't feel like you have to be heard or say something or need to be heard in a moment so much. That's more of our ego that wants to kind of do that, right? But there's more this deep inner peace and silence and calmness where you're like just able to so masterfully in a deeper way hold space for others and just be there and be present with them, truly be there, because that's what heals and that's what helps the most, when we're truly present with one another, right? When we're really there, when we're not lost in our thinking or in our ideas about that person or our judgments about that person or what we think or this or that, or analyzing them, when we're just there, meeting them in the stillness, in the presence. For me, that's what I do with my clients. That's how I facilitate transformation in my work, because so much true transformation and integration happens in this space of depth and presence that you can hold. Right, one of my clients I've been working with for a long time, is her thing has always been not feeling safe somehow, not feeling contained. And so just being that presence for her and with her allows her to really be held and feel deeply safe and feel deeply contained, because you are contained by this divinity, right? And you can transmit that and share that with others when you have realized that presence to be your true nature. You don't see yourself as just this person, you see yourself as this space, and so you can wrap another being into that space for them to feel more safe, more calm, for them to empath that depth, that stillness, that silence, that peaceful joy, right? And so for me, the awakening of presence is primordial. And what do we need to awaken to presence? We need to wake up out of our concepts. We need to wake up out of our ideas of who we are. And that's one of the most challenging things, because as long as we think we are what we think about ourselves, right? I am this person, I am this coach, I am this healer, I'm this businessman. If we solely think ourselves as that is who we are, or, even like I have failed, I'm a failure, those things, we're confined in an identity, and then we're not open to actually be the presence that we are. So to awaken to presence means to free ourselves, or to see through our concepts, our ideas about ourselves, even our most deepest self-identity, with the deepest one being I as a person, right? The I thought is the deepest identity. I am this, right? Our thought self-references itself, right? We reference ourselves as the I thought. But can you see that within the vacuum of presence that you are, that is also just a thought, that is a very kind of real, vivid, interactive thought in the world, and needed to some degree. And it's not about getting rid of that thought. Will always be there, because we're here to interact with the world, but it's more about the deeper realization that that's a part of us. That's not ultimately who we are, right? It's not ultimately who we are. It's an expression of us, a part of us. And so we get to learn to dance playfully with that part of us, while more and more being rooted in the depth, I like to call the ocean of being. Because this is how you transmit peace, and how you become the embodiment of peace and realization and love, by recognizing the presence in all things, and therefore recognizing the unity. And that allows more fear to dissolve, that allows you to just feel more rooted in something existential. And there is a groundedness in something existential that goes beyond you. And I think there's a deep power in that. Because no matter what we have to face as a human being, what initiations, challenges we go through, there's a knowing, oh, okay, it's happening within me and throughout me. I am actually still safe in the presence that I am. So that is the spiritual awakening. And I think that's, in order for us to truly be embodied in our purpose in the fullest capacity, we have to have a deep understanding of that, and an embodied experience of that. And understanding helps, but an embodied experience is everything, because that's how you actually live it, right? Second is the personal awakening. Now, for many years when I was awakening deeply into beingness, into presence, I remember kind of feeling disconnected to myself as a person. And I'm still on this journey right now of integration, where getting to know me as Henry, as the person more, because that's important. That's actually how you ultimately feel life's joy, express life's joy, embody your highest potential and purpose. Is you have to begin to really reveal who you are at your authentic core. You have to reveal who you are personally, right? You have to reveal that. And for me, that was really challenging, because I shared this in the previous video, it's almost like as you awaken into presence, your personality just kind of gets flushed aside. Like you don't fully, your reference points get kind of discombobulated. You don't know who you are. So it's a relearning to really feel, okay, this feels right, this doesn't, this feels like me, this feels good, right? And to learn to be yourself ultimately. And this is where we go through the healing processes of finding our voice, speaking our voice, right? Standing in our power, not cowering, right? Like where all these traumas of our past start surfacing, because we're coming back into our body. We're coming from the presence back into our body, and we are there to heal those things so we can be the fully realized embodied version of ourselves, right? And that's a journey, that's a process that takes time. There's no perfection in this, right? But I think it is so important. I see so many spiritual beings being so over-focused on the spiritual awakening, not realizing that the deepest embodiment is the personal awakening combined with that. You can't, it's a half-baked awakening if you only have that. It needs to be intertwined, and needs to be combined in order for you as the embodied soul to fully come forward. And oftentimes I've seen spiritual teachers, even they hide in this spiritual awakening. They have experiences, yes, for sure, but they overemphasize that, and they create a spiritual identity out of that. And it's actually because they're hiding from their pain. They're hiding what they still need to face to become the embodiment of the deepest truth, right? They're hiding from that. And so for me, my journey has been to integrate that awakening. And to integrate that awakening, sometimes I just needed to do regular things, have a normal routine, because it can be so intense, right? You need to learn how to be a person again in a deep way. And I am really proud of myself, because over the last 4 or 5 years, having taken on different jobs that really helped me to interact with people that weren't spiritual, which is such an important skill set, I feel, is to actually be able to communicate and be with people that aren't sharing your interests, but still have that moment of presence and intimacy, right? And a lot of people that are in their spiritual identities, they can't do that, because they just don't, they don't know how to really just be themselves in a non-awkward, non-weird way, in a sense where they can just be authentically themselves and actually build connections without having to throw spiritual concepts into the mix, right? Again, we talked about the spiritual ego in the previous video. So if you want to know more about the spiritual ego, go back to that video, My Personal Awakening, the key stages and the traps to overcome. But the personal awakening, and this is where I'm still making a lot of headway, and I feel like I've grounded quite deeply back into my body, into my person, but there's still, ways to deepen, to find my authentic expression. Sometimes where I still struggle is kind of feeling like, what exactly is my way as a teacher, as a guide, right? Like, how do I do it in a way that feels fully authentic to me? How do I not take on how other people are doing it, but just truly just do my thing? Sometimes that's still difficult for me to fully kind of trust that. But we all have our challenges with that. And it's really to feel, okay, where are my challenges with my personal awakening? Where am I hiding, right? Where am I not being honest? Where am I not being truthful? Where am I not stepping fully into myself in a way? Where am I avoiding the choices that are truly calling me, that maybe are uncomfortable to my ego, but what are the choices that I need to make in order to be more expressed, more myself, more authentic, more truthful, more real, right? Ultimately, we want to feel real. And I think someone that has awakened spiritually deeply to the presence that we are, but is also a real, vulnerable, sensitive, real, authentic person. That combination, for me, I feel, is the ultimate power, right? This is where our true power comes from, because then we have the spiritual to access, which gives us this divine power to channel through, right? This there's able to transmit this energy of peace and realization and divine remembrance, but we're also able to really be in the grittiness, in the personal, in the vulnerable, right? We're not bypassing anything. We're able to hold space for people masterfully because we're there with their experience, right? We're sharing their experience with them. And we need to awaken personally to get to that place of embodiment. And that's the ultimate journey, right? Is to balance these two sides. So the question I would ask yourself watching this is, what side have I not explored? Maybe you feel quite confident in yourself as a person. You've created success in your business, but you're feeling, created success in your life. You're quite confident with your friends or people, but you're feeling this like sense of something is missing. There's a deeper part of me that I haven't accessed. Then the realization of presence will serve you very well, right? On the other hand, if you're kind of always been focused on just trying to realize this presence, seeking that, you've deepened a lot in that. Yes, sure, keep deepening in that, but don't make that your only quest. Make your quest personal expression, personal liberation, right? The courage to come out of your shell and communicate more, face your fears personally speaking, right? Those things will be important to you. And so you have to be honest with yourself what you're avoiding truly for a full, whole-rounded embodiment, so to say. So I hope this video was helpful and enjoyable to you and you received it. As always, just want to say, if you need support on your spiritual path right now, if you need support balancing the two, if you want to awaken more to the presence and integrate that deeply into your body, into your life, and you want to become more liberated and express personally speaking, or find new avenues to embody yourself in that, I really recommend my one-on-one coaching work, which is a real holistic support system to really help you in these different levels of awakening. And it's my life's work. I love it. I'm deeply passionate about it. And if you want to have a masterful space held for you where you can deepen in that, then you can go to henrynowrocki.com/coaching. Go there, apply, and I'll reach out to you to connect for us to potentially do some work together. Sending you so much love. Again, hope this video was helpful for you. And the question to really dive in here for yourself is, where can I deepen? In which side of awakening do I need to deepen right now?